Hip-hop since 1987.com.
A little bit. You had the Iowa-Ohio State game this year. Did you do that one?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
Well, your thoughts on Iowa?
Yeah, I mean I saw it, but
I can't remember who did it. But your thoughts
sure.
on Iowa? And I know Josh Jackson's here for the Thorpe, Iowa, Kirk Ferentz, and their defense.
Look, I mean they've got tremendous individual players. Jackson had a terrific season. I think Jewell has been one of my favorite players to watch over the last several years, and they epitomize what Kirk's teams always stand for. They're tough. They're resilient. They've had some disappointments. They really ranged, I think, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. I mean, the victory over Ohio State was great. The game against Purdue is probably something they would like to forget, and the Iowa State game seemed to encompass both of those things. It looked lost, and then it was won, and they are a team that will always fight you. You know, they took Penn State to the bitter end, and I think it was just really sort of the epitome of Kirk's teams, with the exception being that typically, I've sort of joked about it, I don't mean any disrespect, but it seems like for some reason that when Iowa pulls those upsets, that it's some score that you normally don't see in a football game, like, 15-12 or 19-16 or something. Instead, they rolled double nickels on those dudes, and that's that was really, really impressive, I thought, and certainly the guys you mentioned, Josh and Josie, both had tremendous seasons in games.
What do you see as kind of the key to this Georgia-Oklahoma matchup?
There are several. I think the first one would be, can Georgia execute well enough on offense to just keep Baker off the field? Baker is the best player in college football, and the Oklahoma offense is the best entire unit. Best position group in football is the Clemson defensive front. The best unit's the Oklahoma offense. And a lot of times, if you have the best player on the field, you can cover a multitude of sins. I would argue that last year Alabama was the better team, but Deshaun Watson was the best player. So you might argue that Georgia's the better team, and maybe they are, complete offense and defense, but Baker's the best player. So that's an equalizer. So I think that's the biggest thing. Can Georgia stay on the field with the running game, limit Baker's opportunities, get some pressure on him, and when they do, hold on to it. I mean, it's like he's slathered in baby oil or something. You can't hang on once you get to him, and he just squirts out and makes a play. And he's tough. He's crazy accurate. I think that's something that people overlook with all of the scrambling and sometimes the bravado and the chip on the shoulder. That dude can knock a gnat off a bull's rear end from 50 yards. I mean, he's legit. And so they're going to have to be disciplined in their coverage in addition to keeping their hands on him when they get to him.
How do you attack this Clemson front?
Does Brian go to church a lot? That would be the first place I would start. No, look, Alabama's offensive line is good, but Clemson's defensive front is the best in the country. So I think you have to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly. Jalen Hurts is going to have to make quick decisions, and he's going to have to be sure in what he does. He's going to have to let it go. I mean, there have been times this year when Jalen has stood in the pocket, and you can't do that against him. Not that he can't break down any line, because he proved he could do that some against him last year, but I think it's hard to make a living unless you're decisive. You're going to have to keep him off balance, slow down the rush a little bit. Brian hasn't called me for any advice, which is really stunning to me. But I think they'll try to continue to be stubborn with the running game, even if it's difficult to run, but still giving Jalen an opportunity to get the ball out of his hand quickly and make them hesitate a little bit.
Rece, what's your assessment of Jalen Hurts' play this year?
I mean, dude's a winner. I mean, look, is he the most polished passer in the country? No, he's not. That dude's a winner. And he's a great athlete. He's got plenty of arm strength. His demeanor is perfect for what you want in a quarterback. And he has the team. He leads. He's the guy that they believe in. So, there's room to grow. There's probably room to grow for everybody. I would imagine Lincoln Riley would tell you that there's room for Baker to grow. And, Jalen had his team within a few seconds of the national championship last year. It shouldn't be forgotten. I mean, just because he didn't have his best day against Auburn, I don't think it's a reason to decide that somehow he can't get it done. That dude, what's it, Aaron? You probably was 24-2, 23, so whatever, something like that. He's lost 2 games. He's lost 2 games. A national champion. And to a top 10 team on the road. At the time was the hottest team in the country. So it happens. Not many guys go through their careers and never lose games.
Only 3 Heisman finalists this year. Any guys you thought were deserving or should have been there in New York as well?
The way you ask that's difficult because there are a lot of guys who are deserving. Saquon Barkley was terrific all season. There's no question about that. But in terms of finalists, I don't have any problems with the number they have because they always take 3 because the Heisman Trust, really wants to make it a special event for the guys who are in it. But I think we all know how that's going to come out on Saturday night. So they could have had 1, and that probably would have been the most deserving. But they're guys who had great seasons. I'm really glad for Bryce, who might have made a run at this had he been able to stay healthy throughout the year. But having that, and Lamar was overlooked because they lost games. I mean, he's the first guy to go 3,000, 1,000 in back-to-back years. That's pretty good. And if you watched him play, he was better in the passing game and just as dynamic as a runner. I worked, as you guys, most of you know, worked with Lou Holtz for 10 years. And Lou always used to say that young quarterbacks who are athletic and can run, he said, they're really good. And he said, I've started to do my Lou impression, I'm not going to. And he was saying, then they want to start playing quarterback. Well, the good thing about Lamar is that he started playing better quarterback and continued to use his ability to run. So I mean, he had a great season. Defense wasn't good enough, and the players weren't good enough around him. But I think it's really cool that he's going to get to come back to New York as the reigning Heisman winner.
Rece, if not empathy, do you have sympathy for JT Barrett's last 2 weeks at Ohio State? The injury, of course, snub.
I mean, JT is one of the great leaders in Ohio State history. Multiple time, 3-time captain. No quarterback has won more games at Ohio State than JT Barrett. Like we were talking about earlier with some other guys, is he perfect? No, very few guys are. And he's had a sensational career. They had a horrific day in Iowa City that cost them a spot in the playoff. You can slice it, strength of schedule, strength of record, metric. We won the championship. They didn't. We were playing. They won. They lost a bad game by a big margin against a very mediocre team. And the committee, then they didn't give the committee reason to erase it, on Championship Saturday. Credit for winning it, still get the trophy, ought to be celebrated, but the committee needed to see them do something to mitigate that big stain on their resume. They didn't do it. So yeah, absolutely I feel badly for him because I think that with the injury in 2014, certainly he was, so I heard someone ask him a few weeks ago, would you like to win one? And he said, I felt like I already did. And he did, because he might not have been able to play in the 2 playoff games, but they aren't there. You really think Cardell's going through that season and not losing again? Not at that stage. And, so I think JT has won a national championship. He's been a player of the year. He's had one of the great careers in college football, so certainly I feel badly for him that he's not able to end it in the way that he would have preferred in terms of playing in the playoffs.
Rece, I had a chance to ask all the Lions guys, then the BCS guys, the BCS guys and the college football playoff guys. Nobody ever wanted to admit there was such a thing as margin of victory. Nobody would ever say there was a margin of victory factor. You just talked about Ohio State didn't win by enough. Is it fair to say now that we have something maybe called a margin of loss that came against Iowa? Maybe it was just worded wrong for 20 years. It's more about the margin of loss as opposed to the victory.
There should have always been margin of victory, and that's different than, say, run up the score. I'm sorry, if you beat somebody by 32, that's different from beating them by 2.
Why wouldn't they ever admit that, though? Why wouldn't they ever?
I think because they don't want to incentivize running up the score, and I think that's a little bit of a misconception because I don't think you're doing that. Because people who are doing a fair evaluation, they understand if you did a stick it to them touchdown at the end to make it 42 instead of 35. But if you beat somebody by 3 touchdowns instead of 3 points, you know, and look, circumstances are different. Teams change. You know, refer to Holtz again. Different team every week. You don't get the same team every week. But if you are evaluating over a very short season with very few things that are relevant to evaluate, then I think it's fair and reasonable to look and say, did you win? How did you play? How badly did you beat them? How badly did you lose to them? What were the reasons for that? You know, was it 10 and felt not great, or was it, you know, 31 or whatever it was for Ohio State? That matters. It should matter. It's part of evaluating how a team plays, in my judgment.
Which way things are more compelling storyline? Is it the rubber match with Clemson and Alabama, or the big rival between the gunslinger guys from the Big 12 against the tough boys against the SEC?
But can I say both? But I think probably from a big picture, it's Clemson, Alabama 3, because those two have been the standard bearers in the sport the last 3 years. Now, if you go back 10, Clemson's not going to approach Alabama. But for right now, if Clemson beats Alabama and then goes on to win the national championship, then there's a new top dog at the moment. And so those things don't necessarily matter to the players and coaches who are involved. Probably matter a little bit to the fans and for those of us who like to step back and take a 30,000-foot view. So there's a lot at stake between that, and plus the fact that they have played 2 sensational football games separated by 1 point. 1 point, you know, in 2 years. So it'll be fun to see them play again. These teams are really different from the last couple of years. Some of the same personnel, but obviously with Deshaun being gone and Kelly being very good, but a different type of quarterback. They're different types of teams, but still with those 2 uniforms and the show they've put on the last couple of years, that's really compelling stuff.
Hip Hop since 1987.com.